When we chose the model for SOI, ESDM was far above the rest for our program because it combines all of the best research-based methodology in a very individualized and developmentally oriented approach. And really, the big part of it for us is that it encourages children in a natural, fun, and interaction based way. And that fits in with our teaching style here at School of Imagination as well. So, ESDM based behavioral therapy should be fun for the child. And if we're not motivating the child, then we have to take a look at how we're doing what we're doing. So it's very much based on the motivation and interactions that we have with each child. ESDM uses teaching practices and procedures that are melded together from three different intervention traditions, as Christy said. So we're looking at ABA, PRT, and the Denver model. And the Denver model was developed for very young children with autism and is really more of an interaction-based program. So all of these three programs combined lead us to the model that ESDM uses. And so the main teaching strategies that we find most effective in ESDM are, of course, the use of positive affect. So when a child does something, you give them a lot of visual praise and woo and a lot of reinforcement in a positive way. And so that helps them to understand the value of social interaction. So it really enhances the reward for them. And once they start getting excited because you're excited, that's a motivator, and that draws them more to the face and to the interactions that you can have by looking at another person's face, and away from object focus, which we see a lot with our kiddos with ASD. They're more focused on how the wheels look on the truck or how the lines look in the room. But to get them engaged in a face, sometimes you have to make some really big facial expressions and very excited movements, but it's to draw their attention and to build that value. We use play as the frame for the intervention, and the play that we're using to build to is joint activities where two individuals or eventually more are focused on one activity. And if you've worked a little bit with children with ASD, it's hard sometimes to get them to engage with you and with an activity. So we have to do the stepping stones first by get them engaged in your face, eventually turn taking, so it builds up to it. But play is the frame because children learn from play. They learn conversation from play, and then eventually how to interact in the world. That we have turns that we take, that sometimes we have to wait, sometimes we have to sit. All these important things are learned through play. And then it's very intensive teaching. So there's repetitions of the same activities, and the repetition should be as consistent as possible, because the kids learn from the repetition a lot. And if you're doing it exactly the same way initially and then varying this skill, it teaches them the foundation of it, and that the fact that there can be a variation and they have to be flexible for that variation, but also that there's other ways to play with a toy or other ways to do an activity. But first, they have to learn the consistency of the activity before you vary it. And so that makes play eventually more fun and more functional for the child. So with the intensive teaching, we're capturing their attention. We're prompting them for the desired behaviors that we want to see. So we'll give them, we'll wait for them, or wait with an excited face, or maybe we'll prompt them with like a gentle touch on their elbow or their hand, or maybe we'll give them the initial sound of a word. What do you want? You want the B for ball. And then the other piece is managing the consequences. So after something happens and maybe it doesn't go as great, how do we get them to regulate back to the activity? So even soothing, calming, and being flexible are built into the play activity. So those are all things that we work on behaviorally as well. And then the other piece is positive behavior approaches for unwanted behavior. behaviors. So we're trying to find replacement behaviors for behaviors that we would rather not see. So instead of screaming, and Christy will go into this in a little bit, a lot more detail next, but instead of screaming, we want to teach the child to point. So maybe we have a three-step process that changes that behavior by getting knowing what the child's going to want before they start screaming, and handing it to them and showing them to point to it or touch it. And that all happens in anticipation of the scream. So we really have to be on top of things and know kind of what stimulus equals what response, and get in there before the stimulus so that we can change the response. And then finally, the last piece is the family involvement. So we only get to see the kiddos for a short amount of time during the day, and the family has them in the evening and on the weekends and the rest of the day and throughout the other activities. So if they know the goals that the children are working on, that their child is working on specifically, and we break them down clearly enough, they know to put their ESDM goggles on. So when can I sort with this child? When can I use that opportunity? Sorting is a goal again. I need to teach them how to see, cars from animals, or blocks from dolls. And so anytime that parent has an opportunity to work on that goal and they're using their ESDM goggles, they'll be working on it throughout the day. So we get practice at school, we get practice at home, and we get practice in therapy on the same consistent goals. And again, we see a lot of wonderful progress.